Concerned about soy milks because there's the same binding of the soy protein. So the issue was casein, was the milk proteins glomming on to these polyphenol phytonutrients. There's that same kind of binding with soy protein, so we thought it would have the same effect. But the difference is that our good gut bacteria in our microbiome can actually the soy protein dissociates from the polyphenols in our guts. That's a particular
Tonight's special guest will tell you the truth about soy that scientists know, but that the soy industry has tried to suppress. Soy is not a health food, does not prevent disease, and has not even been proven safe. Epidemiological, clinical, and laboratory studies link soy to malnutrition, digestive problems, thyroid dysfunction, cognitive decline, reproductive disorders, even heart disease and cancer. It makes you wonder why our nation, our bodies, and our children are not being properly protected. Soy is just one more example of risks to the public that far outweigh the greedy benefits derived by big business and politicians. This is a serious wake-up call. Dr. Kayla T. Daniel is known as the naughty nutritionist because of her ability to outrageously and humorously debunk nutritional myths. She's vice president of the Weston A. Price Foundation and on the board of directors of the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. Dr. Daniel earned her PhD in nutritional sciences from the Union Institute at University in Cincinnati. Is certified as a clinical nutritionist by the International and American Association of Clinical Nutritionists in Dallas, and in 2005 received the Weston A. Price Foundation's Integrity in Science Award. She's the author of many books, including The Whole Soy Story.
I come to you with shocking news. Soy is not a health food. Soy does not prevent disease. Soy does not cure disease, and soy has not even been proven safe. Protease is the enzyme you need to digest protein. So soy is a plant protein that has a high level of protein, but guess what? It comes with something that makes it hard to digest. That's one of the reasons soy is indigestible to many people. So we have those protease inhibitors. And because the cysteine is not bioavailable, the body ends up producing more homocysteine. And high homocysteine levels not only put us at greater risk for heart disease, but for premature aging, cancer, and other health problems. So let's move on to look at some of the information you need to decide whether you actually want to include soy in your diet and soy in your life. Well, there are a lot of problems with soy. I already mentioned the protease inhibitors, which make it very hard to digest and can lead to pancreatic problems and digestion problems. There are also phytates that make it hard to properly absorb minerals, and that's going to affect your bones, among other things. Soybeans also contain high levels of oligosaccharides, which is why soy can produce a lot of gas. And indeed, the soy industry studies, they have indicated that they see a couple problems in getting all of us consumers to eat lots of soy. The one problem was the taste problem, and the second one was one that they call the flatulence problem. And soy is indeed the king of musical fruits. And soy is indeed the king of musical fruits. But there is a more serious problem with soy than gas. And the most serious problem with soy is the phytoestrogens. Phyto means plant, and soy is full of plant estrogens. Plant estrogens are not true estrogens. They're not identical to human estrogens, but they're close enough so they can fool the body. And with that, they can create a lot of hormonal havoc, a lot of endocrine disruption, and in short, a whole lot of problems. thyroid, reproductive, you name it. These are serious problems. Now, soy protein contains a type of phytoestrogens known as isoflavones. You may have heard that, or you may have heard of things like genistein and daidzein, which are types of isoflavones. That's what we're talking about here. So plant estrogens exert estrogenic effects either directly or indirectly. Now, directly they do that because they bind with hormone receptor sites. So what do you think that means if you've got a little boy who needs testosterone to grow into a man and it's all gummed up with soy estrogens? Okay, let's look at indirect. The indirect way it affects... Okay, let's look at indirect. The indirect way it affects hormones is interfering with estrogen, testosterone, and other hormone production. Now, there are a lot of uncertainties about plant phytoestrogens. But one thing is clear, soy plant estrogens are not weak. Yet the soy industry and the popular health writers constantly tell us that soy estrogens are safe because they are weak estrogens, weak all-natural soy estrogens. And they're being pushed as hormone replacement therapy, etc. And in terms of numbers, the popular media and soy industry scientists will tell us that they are 10,000 times to 1 million times less potent than the human estrogen estradiol.
Which would be a good thing. Nothing particular. The soy protein.
The thing is, if the quantity is high enough, and the quantity does get high if your baby's going to be fed soy formula, or your child's drinking a lot of soy milk, or you're drinking a lot of soy milk and eating soy energy bars and snacking on whole bags of edamame or whatever, the quantity adds up, and that is where it becomes dangerous. So, how did the myth of soy having weak estrogens emerge? Where did that come from? I think this group is going to find this story very interesting. Anthony Huggett, a PhD scientist with Nestle in Switzerland, made an error involving a decimal point, the kind of thing that my 5th grader is working with right now. The decimal point, the figure he meant to write was 1 over 1,000, or 0.001. What he wrote instead is 0.0001. So 1/1,000th became 1/10,000th. Now, this was pointed out to Dr. Huggett by a number of very good scientists, but nothing happened. The error lived on. Nestle forwarded the report complete with the error to the World Health Organization, and that passed it around in turn to the New Zealand Health Ministry and other governments. Now, whether that erroneous figure was a deliberate attempt to deceive or a simple negligence or incompetence is not known. But what I can tell you is Nestle is a major manufacturer of soy infant formula. And so is Wyeth Ayerst and some of these other companies that have been very busy in promoting the idea of the weak estrogen and saying it's 1 over 10,000 to 1 million times as weak. Is producing testosterone. Now, what do you think happens if estrogens, whether environmental estrogens or soy estrogens, start interfering with and suppressing that baby boy's testosterone production? The male fetus is extremely vulnerable at this point, and this is why birth defects involving sex organs are more than 8 times more likely to happen to males than to females. Right now, we are experiencing an epidemic of a birth defect in male babies called hypospadias. Hypospadias is a birth defect in which the tip of the penis is the mouth of the penis is not at the end, but somewhere underneath. And when it happens, it's to a very estrogenized little boy. and some of them undergo operations. It can be a very serious problem, and the levels from minor to major surgery being involved. There is also possible other damage to the baby boy's reproductive system, and that may not be so obvious at birth. It may not show up until puberty or later. There may also be changes to the brain, specifically the sexually dimorphic brain. There's all sorts of other problems. They are at higher risk, for example, to thyroid disorders, particularly autoimmune thyroid disease. Allergies. Soy is now one of the top 8 allergens. That's widely acknowledged. It's up from around top 10, top 11, 15 years ago. And many experts believe soy allergies will soon be in the top 4. And a big reason for that is the increase in genetically modified soybeans in the marketplace. That's probably the biggest reason for the increase in soy allergies. Plus the fact soy is in just about everything, so the exposure is greater, and the other thing, soy formula is more popular.
Definitely, that reactivity affects membranes. You're going to change what's in the outer membrane and depolarize the membrane. Production of free radicals, which also causes the death and malfunction of mitochondria. You kill enough mitochondria, you kill the whole cell, and red blood cells are known to explode with too much oxalate in blood. Changes neurological function. First and foremost, you're going to see neurological things happening. Connective tissue loses its integrity. Its ability to recover and maintain itself can become severely retarded. It depletes nutrients, changes the flora that's growing in the colon, and triggers inflammasome reactions. Causes epigenetic effects, anemia, scarring, and poor healing, and communication problems with cells.
In her dissertation, she has a major discussion of, guess what? Infertility issues. She goes on and on about the whole literature with animal studies linking soy to infertility, and this is a rich literature. And she concluded, quote, the plant estrogens present in soya protein interfered with mechanisms responsible for ovulation. Now, is that clear? I think it's clear. Fertility issues. Well, male fertility issues, that's the biggest reason that the Israelis have warned against soy, because the Israelis care a whole lot about fertility. You know, we have that biblical injunction about be fruitful and multiply. The Israelis were very clear that they were concerned about adverse effects on fertility among the men. And what happens here, soy can lower testosterone levels. And this can result in the poor quality and poor quantity of sperm. Recently, we had a study came out of Harvard School of Public Health, and they were looking at infertile couples, and they found to their total surprise that the men in these infertile couples, the men who were eating just 2 servings of soy foods a week, these weren't men who were eating it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, 2 servings a week, those men had 41 million fewer sperm per milliliter. 41 million fewer. So how did the soy industry respond to this? They said, of course, it was a poor study, poorly designed, etc., which is pretty much standard reply on their part.
Nothing particular. Healthy diet is it's important for building up all of our tissues, but...
They also pointed out that you actually only need 1 sperm for conception. Well, I've got some better material here. Anybody interested in soy's effect on the libido? Well, soy is extremely popular in some places in Asia. It's popular in the Zen monasteries. And the reason it's popular there is because the monks take vows of celibacy, and those monks noticed that when tofu consumption went up, the naughty behavior went down. And people often ask me if soy is good for anything. Well, there's a lot of women here. Here's an idea that you might use on the man in your life, possibly. We know that Japanese wives feed extra helpings of soy to unfaithful husbands.